Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 448. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, along with Johnny V
In spirit,
in spirit. The
because
spirit of
you're in
Swanee,
sunny Florida.
sunny, sometimes muggy, usually warm and
Don't care.
sunny Florida.
None
Yes,
of none of those
yes.
things matter.
Uh, speaking of which, nothing like leaving whenever I did, Thursday? And then just the barrage and onslaught, I think it was on Thursday or Friday already, of nothing but snow pictures and,
Yeah.
like, almost a legitimate snowstorm blizzard type scenario back in Wisconsin, or no?
I mean, there was a little bit of time when the wind was picked up quite a bit. It's hard to call it a blizzard when it just snows a lot. Like, to me, blizzard entails a ton of wind and whatnot, and there was a little bit of that for a while, but in general, I think right around my house got 8 inches, 8 to 9 inches of snow. A little further north, a friend of ours actually this past weekend was the Wisconsin Spring Opener
Mm,
up in
how'd that
I
how'd
believe
that work out?
Ohauser Park, I think is where it was, something
Yep,
along those
yep,
lines.
yep.
And I believe they had well over a foot of snow that was
Mm,
dumped in than less than 24 hours. Because there was a picture I saw of a gentleman who got an ace the day before, and he's there with his disc, and you see no snow on the ground. And he shows a picture next day. He's at Tournament Central, and it's not quite white out at that point, but it was very, very touchy. They ended up calling the second round and just not bothering because the first round took so long that they were just afraid they were not going to be able to get in a second round.
I did not hear that.
Yeah.
Now, granted, just like our event in Texas, I didn't hear a ton of the details because I was, head feet, neck deep, whatever, in Tallahassee, which well, I realized that they didn't play the second round at the tournament, which makes perfect sense with all of that snow
Mm-hmm.
that came just the day before. Probably most people weren't expecting and or truly planned for it. And there's only so much daylight. So interesting news to hear.
I
That
think the hardest part
sucks.
was, you're right, the fact that it all showed up the day before. Had it been one day earlier, everyone could have probably gotten to the tournament in a good time. They might even have pushed back the start time a little bit based on the fact that
Mm.
all travel was super slow throughout the entire Midwest, and especially Wisconsin. So it just took everybody longer to get there. Our buddy Steve, who went up there, said he didn't drive hardly any faster than 45 miles an hour from here up to Appleton, which normally it's 70 to 75 you're going. So it took him almost twice as long to get there. So I think everything was just pushed back a little bit. Life happens, that's what you get when you do a spring opener the weekend after spring. And in Wisconsin, sometimes spring goes or doesn't start until May.
Yeah.
So
Well, okay. Well, hopefully everyone remains safe. I knew that some people just flat out couldn't make it to the event because of it, and I'm going to continue to steer clear of that event. And I know I run an event in just a few weeks myself. We could have the exact same thing in southern Wisconsin, in on April 15th and 16th, but it seems like that event always has the worst weather and or conditions. So
yeah.
I'm going to continue to steer clear of it, and I guess I'll just complain about the humidity I dealt with in Florida instead. 80 degrees, 85, no snow. All right, so tonight, for everyone that's wondering, we are going to have Sai Ananda join us. She is actually making a near cross country trip, I believe, trying to get back and relax and get home for a little bit before she gets back out on the road. But she said she's going to take a pit stop and join us, so we appreciate that. I think we're expecting her around 9:30 Central Time, so roughly 25 minutes from now. So if you're sitting here just waiting and all you care about is hearing from her, well, you can tune out for a little bit and then make sure you rejoin us. But Sai Ananda is going to join us from the road, and we'll be able to catch up with her. And until then, we can talk about what we saw at Texas State's on the MPO side, and we can also talk about what I experienced and what we had over in Tallahassee. So, Johnny, you want to start it off with MPO action down in Texas this weekend?
Nothing more that I would like to do, Jerry Miller.
Well,
We saw Kelvin continue to dominate. He won by 5
oh, okay.
strokes. I think he went in with a 4-stroke lead, and he picked up a stroke. The guy just is the best disc golfer on the planet right now. His putting is, for the most part, lights out. he just can't be stopped. It doesn't matter the type of course. It doesn't seem to matter the distance. Calvin's on a heater. He's finished first, third, first, or something along those lines. There's
Who
no.
does he think he is? The Kristen Tatar of previous podium finishes? Jeez.
I mean, wouldn't that be nice? That'd be a season in the MPO for sure.
Yeah, it certainly would be.
So Calvin, to be fair, I didn't even watch the last round for MPO because it was, to me, almost so boring knowing like, ugh, Vinny, you got this. Watch Top Chef instead. So there's that.
Wow.
That's how my interest was peaked.
Where are your priorities?
In the right place, apparently. Second place, a tie with Anthony Barella and Joel Freeman. They were 5 strokes behind Calvin, as I said. Fourth place, the name we keep talking, other than Calvin, James Proctor. Proctor is having a season, and there's nothing stopping that guy right now. He for those of you that didn't follow, I think we've talked about this, regional player who was I think he was 1040 rated for a while, went on tour. Just in general, I don't think had the best touring season, and his rating dropped. It plummeted like almost 20 points. And everyone that knows James Proctor knows that he's not a 10-20 golfer. And I think we're seeing this year the type of golfer he truly is. So he was 7 strokes behind Calvin at 26. Fifth place, Alden Harris. Sixth place, Nicholas Antila. Tied with Ezra Aderhold. Ezra, another guy who's having a really great start to the season. I think other than Waco. Was it Waco or was it Texas?
Yeah, second. And I happened to just look at that, so I'll pretend like I knew that one. But yeah, that's his only poor finish out of the season, and he's sitting in the top. I want to say he's in like 7th place in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings, or maybe eventually. But yeah, he's had a really good year, except for a less than amazing finish at Waco.
And Waco, as we know, I don't want to say it's not fluky. That's not the right word to ever use with Waco. It challenges a different set of skills, and maybe that's a spot where, looking at Ezra, he knows that he needs to get a little bit better in the woods. So we'll see. Honestly,
and to give him full credit, he's sitting in 3rd. I was thinking about I was looking at his finishes. He's sitting in 3rd in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings right now. He's got a 6th, a 2nd, a 72nd, a 6th, and a 6th. Holy cow! So
he's consistent.
If it doesn't have a 2 or a 6 in it, he's not interested at this point. So yeah, holy cow. 1, 2, 3, 4 different events. He's finished either 6th or tied for 6th in 4 out of the last 6 events he's played on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So
he's probably about the 6th best rated player or 6th best player in the world right now, we'll say. Not rated, but anyway, Ezra Aderhold tied for 6th. 8th place, we had Aaron Gossage and Kyle Klein. A good showing for Aaron Gossage, who has not really been in the conversation much yet this year. And I would say a disappointing finish for Kyle Klein, who has been a lot in our conversation as he just won Waco and has finished well most of the events. So for him to and it's only 8th place. It's a silver event, not silver series. It's a silver event. But ultimately, I think Kyle most people expected maybe a little bit higher finish from Kyle. 10th place was Brody Smith, which is, again, a really good finish for him. He took a 7 on a par 5, where a lot of people were taking birdie on that, and that literally knocked him out of, 5th place, 5th or 6th place. So Brody having a really good event. I think we're going to see still with Brody a little bit of up and down play. I think he's still relatively fresh, I will say, on the scene, and he's still kind of getting a skill set together. Tied with Chris Clemonade, shot a 20 under. That's your top 10 right there, Terry.
Okay. I mean, any wild surprises when we're looking at that top 10? Is there anything that absolutely blows your mind?
No. Honestly, I mean, as I said, I think Kyle Klein probably a little disappointed in an 8th, just based on how he's been playing lately. You would have thought he would have been fighting for a podium spot, but anyone can have an off weekend. It's a silver event. I think the big surprise is who didn't finish in the top 10, and that is Gannon Burr.
Yeah.
Gannon
Tied
took
for
19th,
did he?
tied 19th with Gavin
Well,
Babcock.
yeah, it kind of looks like he took the back 9 off, is what he did. I'm only, and again, I'm going to preface this and say this, hopefully just this once. I consumed none, and maybe a caster. I consumed none of the event this weekend as it was taking place in Texas. Obviously, all of my attention was focused on getting the coverage post release over there in Tallahassee. So outside of barely 2 seconds of flipping through a Facebook or a Reddit or whatever, I saw a couple of headlines. I saw an own ace. Outside of that, I saw almost nothing. But just real quick, and looking at Gannon's finish to the event from hole 8 to hole 18, where you see a ton of blue birdies on disc, we see that there was just one single birdie by Burr, and so it just kind of looked like
Well,
something either happened or he just
mhm.
took the back 9 off or whatever, but clearly did not finish as strong as most of the field did.
Yeah, the back 9 is a spot where you can score. There's 2 spots where I think Gannon failed. It was round 1, the front 9, where he was like 4 or 5 over par on the front 9 round 1,
Okay.
and it was windy that first day.
Sure.
Very, very tough conditions, but he did not perform nearly as well as I think a lot of people predicted. And then you're right, the third round of the back 9. Nothing wrong with the second round where he shot a 10 under clearly. It was that first round where he shot a 1 down, and then the third round where he shot a 4 down. Just a bad event for Gannon. I mean,
Sure.
it's
Now,
not much you can
and
say
I'm going to
about
lean
it.
on you for this. I know everything I just said about not watching, so I'll lean on you for this. Talk about the course, because this is an event that traditionally has that rotates. It's essentially bid out for Texas State's, then rotates from place to place. Last year, we saw it at a totally different location, different tournament directors, all of that. Talk about what we saw for the course, or what your takeaways were from the course out there.
The course, I thought it was a decent course for MPO. I don't think it was much of anything special for MPO.
Okay.
It's about 9,800 feet, almost 9,900 feet actually. So a relatively average length course for our Pro Tour series, and it's a temp course. It's not it's not in the ground all the time, unlike the FPO, which is more or less a modified version of, I think, Brock Park. So this is what they call Brock Park Gold. The MPO and the FPO had 2 completely different courses. So
which is pretty
phenomenal,
unique in itself, right?
Yeah, I think, and I hate to stereotype, but a lot of courses that are put in the ground for most parks and we'll say slightly upper level events are probably catered better towards our FPO players, just based on distances. The MPO players will go to most of your local parks and shred them. So they need a different, they need different challenges. So the FPO course was, I thought it was tuned a little bit. Clearly it wasn't exactly what the park is laid out as, but it was really good for them. There was really good scoring. I think we saw a bunch of 6, 7, 8 under pars. Really scoreable. And it was obviously scoreable as well for the men, but I didn't find the men's course as compelling, maybe. And maybe that's part of it, that it was the fact that Kelvin was crushing. Like, he kind of got out and just never, and so maybe I lost a little bit of interest and my thoughts wandered, and I don't know, all the other things. But I didn't love the men's course. I did love the FPO course. But I will say that there's a lot of people who maybe paid a little bit more attention than I did to MPO that felt that this set of courses should be a staple on the tour. Maybe every other year or something along those lines. Houston had a really great turnout for spectators for a silver event. And I know there's talk about how much time we spend in Texas. But looking at Waco, looking at Austin, looking at Houston, they all pulled in really good amounts of spectators. If you can get that every year or two, I don't see why we need to wander away from Texas with two elite events and a silver event.
I
Hard
overall,
hard to say.
I would generically rebut that by saying I think there's something to be said about just being in a different state. Even, and I'll just make up
Mm,
a silly scenario, even if the exact course you played in northern Texas looks just the course you play in southern Oklahoma, I just think there's this idea of, hey, we're at a different place, we're in a different location, therefore it feels different. And so for our players to be in Texas for 3 straight weeks, where you could flip a coin
mhm.
as to what you're going to get in terms of the weather at this time of year, I think there's just and I'm only
But
speaking from the rumor mill, there's just a lack of appeal to that. And that's not to be a rip on Texas or any of these amazing clubs and sponsors. Of course, none of that. But there is kind of this notion of like, I don't want to be in the same state as big as it is. I don't want to be in the same state 3 weeks in a row. We might think that's silly, but that's what the players are saying.
I agree. And obviously it depends on the time of year and what's going on, because the only other place I feel like we can be is Florida. I guess you could go back to Arizona, but even anything north of Texas, you run the risk of snow.
Sure.
And so
I mean,
I mean it's
yeah, I mean, there's phenomenal golf in Louisiana down there, and of course, I know people have to put in bids, blah blah blah, and have to want to hold events. I mean, there's other places that could get
Mhm.
played, but I also agree. I mean, obviously, the schedule locks in to be a logical place, like you said. If you're getting good turnouts, you're getting people that want to run large scale events, and if Texas happens to be that home, that's great. I feel like our players have this notion of like, I don't know if I want 3 weeks there.
I can understand that. I believe we saw some players uh, skip out on the silver event. People that were signed up
Mhm.
that just decided not to show. KJ bailed. Matty O kind of bailed. He was registered. Matty O was registered for 2 events this weekend. And part of that
Yeah,
might just be part of the tour card. You register and you have, hey, there you
correct.
go. So you're getting in anyway. So I answered quite a few questions on Skip Base about where Matty O was. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's doing Tallahassee. Um, and we were right. He did Tallahassee.
Hmm.
I think if you put the silver event between the two elite, it might force the players to stay. I don't know if that's what you want. And again, we've seen that sometimes it might be better for interest, for spectators, for fundraising to make this an every other year event. In
Yeah.
Houston, we'll say just in Houston, because we saw last year when the tour stayed in Texas for this long, the final Texas event had mediocre spectatorship. It seemed to lack a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, I feel like it was different this time around, but who knows what you're going to get next year? If Texas State's is in Dallas next year, you might not get that. Who knows? It's a really
Uh,
tough call.
as in, like I said, it always starts with you have to have event event organizers, partners that want to be putting on an event. So it's all got to start there. We
Mhm.
can say pie in the sky ideas and woulda, coulda, shouldas all day long, but it starts with events and organizers that want to put on an event. That's got to be the starting point. And then the pro tour has now, I'll call it a luxury of being able to pick or choose where they want to be and who they're going to partner up with to have an event in any given location. I mean,
Mhm.
some of these are good problems to have, so to speak, that we have these choices, we have these opportunities. But I'm just relaying a little of what I hear out on the
Oh,
ground, which
I
is,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
It's I mean, it's not just
and
it's not a secret. We see
no, and
people
somebody
post it
said
on
it
Facebook.
perfectly on the board. Someone said, "Well, but 3 weeks in Oregon, Oregon has a different vibe, a different feel to it." Again, not trying to be, I'm not anti-Texas by any means, but if you polled a lot of people, especially disc golfers, nature-loving disc golfers, and you said, "Would you like 3 weeks in Oregon or would you like 3 weeks in Texas?" I feel like a lot of the
Mhm.
poll is going to come back for Oregon. Oregon's just one of the most beautiful places to be now. Way more expensive and has a lot of other perceived cons to it, but let's face it, that's not even. I don't still don't think that's going to be a fair question as to where you'd rather spend 3 weeks for most of our disc golf community. Fair or not, that's just a reality. So,
Let's move over
all
to
right, I'm done.
FPO discussion. As I said, the course was tuned really nicely for the FPO. I felt it was very scoreable. Uh, Sai Ananda, our guest tonight, once she finds a spot to settle up, she won, beating Kristen Tatar by 3 strokes. A very solid win for Sai. Sai went into the round, I believe, with a 4-stroke lead. Oh, I think actually it was like 3 strokes over Own, but 4 over Kristen, and then there was some shuffling. So either way, she ends up with a 3-stroke victory over Kristen Tatar. Third place, Own Scoggins with a 16 under par, so losing to Sai by 4 strokes. Holland Hanley in 4th place. 5th place, a tie with Katrina Allen and Jessica Weiss. 7th place, Missy Gannon. 8th place, Kat Murch and Aria Castorita. And running off the top 10, Emily Beach. I know this is a silver event, but one thing that I'll say is that this had basically every person other than Paige Pierce at it for your major FPO players. I will say it did lack your Henna and Evelina, but Henna and Evelina haven't necessarily been in the conversation this year yet. Off and on. I think this is a course where Henna could have really excelled. She might have taken a podium here, or maybe a top 5 at worst, depending on how things are going. But regardless of all of that, Sai Ananda handily beat the field. And you could tell by watching Kristen Tatar play, there's something off with Kristen's game. Whether it's her putting, her approaching, she's just leaving herself with longer putts inside the circle and missing them. And I think that she has talked about it on her social media, how something is just not, I don't say broken, but something's not sitting right with her right now in her game. And she has flown now back over to Estonia to take care of some personal things for a week or so. And then she flies back for Music City. And then she's going to go Music City. She might be playing the silver after that, and then right to Champions Cup.
Oh, there is a silver event after that, or is the week? I think there's a week off. Actually, I think there is a week off because I think it goes Music City and then the 15th and 16th. I thought we had a possibly even a weekend. Oh no, I apologize. Innova Blue Ridge Championship at North Cove. I'm
North
sorry.
Cove.
Yeah, so that happens, and then this cup, and then of course Jonesboro. Obviously, she's defending champion at both Champions Cup as well as, or not at Champions Cup. I'm sorry, not at Champions Cup, as I just said she won the major. She didn't. She's so close. But obviously runner up at Champions Cup last year, and then she went on and destroyed everybody at Jonesboro the week after. So we'll see her at those. Did you say if she is registered?
I did not see.
She is registered for the Blue Ridge
assume
Championship.
It makes sense.
She's registered.
Usually when we see our overseas competitors come over, they tend to play almost all the events. Just it makes sense to get them in.
Yeah, well, you're here.
I mean,
you're here to play golf.
She's one of the ones that could take a week off, and it probably wouldn't hurt or bother her, as opposed to maybe some of the other players who, when they come over, they want to get in as much golf as humanly possible against the top competitors. So, Owen Scoggins gets an ace on the first round, a skip ace on hole 2, I believe it was. So
did she owe you royalties for that?
She does, actually. I think I have to pay her. I think that's how that works, because I have skipace.com, so I need to pay her something. So we'll figure that out. But anyway, Owen Scoggins, a pretty solid round or event in that matter. Again, like I said, taking third, just very, very own-esque, I will say, this event. And watching, it was fun. I watched all of the FPO this weekend. Watching the interactions between Sai, Kristen, and Own was enjoyable. They were having so much fun, always rooting for each other. There, every single, it felt like almost every single great shot was awarded like knucks by everyone in the card. At one point, Sai and Own are looking for four-leaf clovers wandering around. It's such a different vibe than we get with MPO. For every star frame they got, star birdie, we'll say, um, they'd all go up to the chains and shake the chains together. It was a funny
Yeah,
like
that's
it's like
I
it's
think
been
that's a European thing, right? Or
yeah, it's been around for a
I
little
see something
while,
from
but I haven't seen other groups do that, and I know Kristen's been in quite a few of them, but this one they were doing that as well, and it was a fun event to watch. Sai kind of had it. I don't want to say she had it handily, because towards the middle of that final round, it got a little bit sketch for her when Own birdied 2 holes and then took a bogey, and Sai bogeyed 2 holes. So it kind of got a little bit where things could get out of hand, but Sai buckled down. She got 3 birdies in a row, 12, 13, and 14 on the final round. Followed it up with 3 pars, one of which she played masterfully, just laid it up. Didn't even there's OB. It's a hole that that pushes out to almost like a peninsula. It's OB on both sides. Tatar went for it, and because she had birdied the previous hole on 17, threw it out of bounds. Sai Ananda, I believe, went next. Guys, it's getting blurry now. Laid it up like way short of the thing. This is a 297-foot hole. I think Sai threw it 160 feet, 180 feet maybe. And then Own went for it as well for the peninsula and went out of bounds. Holland Hanley went for it, went out of bounds. I believe Holland hit the OB putt, though. The other two did not. And Sai had a scary 150-foot approach, 140-foot approach into this little island, but she just threw something, a nice stable mid-range, put it right on the island, and tapped it in on 17. When then she went to 18, made the made the water, and then drained an unnecessary birdie putt. We'll say that. But she's shaking her head. She's in our green room right now. She just showed up in the digital green room, and she kind of nods her head like she knows. So, we're talking about her. Let's bring her onto the show. So I'd like to welcome Sai Ananda to the Smashbox TV podcast. I can spit this
Hello,
out. Hi, Sai.
everybody.
Hey, how
It's
you
an
Sai,
honor
how
to
doing?
you
be here.
doing?
Thank you. I'm doing really well. I'm coming at you from the streets of Denver right now.
Hopefully someplace safe.
Yes, yes.
uh, uh, right. Well, thank you. I told everyone at the top of the show that you'd be joining us, Ruff. So also that you're traveling, right? Yeah, you're trying to get home for a little rest and relaxation, or what? What's kind of? We don't need your coordinates for any weirdos out there, but
Yeah.
what are you doing?
So yeah, I had from Houston, I think it was a 29-hour drive, I want to say. Back home. So we busted out a one leg of it yesterday, and then we're trying to maybe drive through the night tonight because we're very eager to get home. We meaning my dad and I.
All right.
Okay, I did not realize that. So thank you even more so for taking a little time to join us. So we won't keep you long like a normal show, but so presumably this was all in your plan of your touring and going home after this event and so on and so forth. It was, I mean, nothing's changed with all this newfound championship victory and anything.
It's kind of funny how as soon as I kind of like got the trophy and signed awards and stuff like that, it was like, oh, the card behind you, you're gonna need to get off the hole. There's still cards playing, and then, oh, I need to get home so I can pack all of my Airbnb so I can pack all of my stuff, and then it's kind of it's humorous how much life goes on, after such a momentous kind of like, day and such a momentous, week with all the practice days leading up to it and all of this kind of all of this anticipation, and then all of a sudden, boop, 15 minutes and you're in tears, and then all of a sudden, oh, I have to get home. I have to pack everything. I have to prepare for the next event, lodging for the next event, and it's funny how life just kind of moves forward.
Is there a little bit of,
Well,
I'll say, is there a little bit of disappointment in that you're not continuing your hot streak? That now you have to kind of take this break. A lot of the tour is going east, and obviously you're going west and going to kind of wait for the west, the West Coast swing to come and hit you. But is there a little bit of disappointment that you're like, I'm not going to go to MCO, I'm not going to hit Champions Cup? It just feels like there's a lot of momentum behind you right now.
Honestly, it's kind of the contrary. I feel like that was such a, I don't know, such a big like kind of blow up, that was emotionally that was so huge for me, and then physically just kind of like being on the road for the last, 5 almost 6 weeks. It's actually kind of relieving, and actually really nice to have this big, like emotional kind of like explosion, I guess to say, and then I get to, instead of just racing off to the next event, or, racing off to the next course to practice, I get to kind of go home, and I get to kind of sit on it for a little while, and even now it's still kind of sinking in that actually happened, and the public definitely helps it sink in. Just the absolute like I think onslaught is a pretty accurate word of just joy and support and encouragement, and like I literally haven't even had time to scroll through all of and like all of the messages, and all of the comments and all of the posts of just congratulatory, just support. And it's honestly, it's really nice just to be able to go home and to kind of rest, and to catch up on all of that. Maybe spend a day on social media, kind of connecting with people who are supporting, and replying to all those messages and stuff like that. So I guess you could see it as maybe disappointing, but I think it was an absolute perfect kind of crescendo a little bit. And now I get to kind of rest, and prepare myself for my next leg.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a walk off, like, Psh, I'm champ, I'm out. I'll see you guys later. I'll rejoin you.
Yes.
Now, speaking of your schedule, according to the PDJ at least, your next event isn't until Masters Cup in the beginning of May, May 5th, and then it looks like you're playing almost every single weekend in May and June for the most part. Um, is that truly going to be your next event? And what will you do between now and Masters Cup?
Honestly, I don't really have anything lined up. So Masters Cup is going to be the next event that I plan on doing. And honestly, I think I have, if I get back home tomorrow, I think it'll be maybe 3.5 weeks I have to kind of, relax at home, recuperate, and switch up my wardrobe for kind of a warmer stretch. I have definitely have a
Mhm.
lot of pants and socks and boots and jackets for, Texas. So I'm kind of just planning on doing at least a little bit of rest, a little bit of recuperation, spend some quality time with my cat and my boyfriend, and I think I have a team back home that I kind of go to putting with, and just kind or putting league with and stuff like that. So I have a group back home that is so eager to see me, and I'm probably planning on playing a couple putting leagues if I can make it out there, and kind of connect with some of my fans back at home and my friends back at home. They want to take me out to a big celebratory dinner and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a really nice break to kind of recharge myself a little bit and kind of refocus, and then hopefully I can get some putting league practice. And I think I'm sure you guys have heard of Caliber disc golf course. I think
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
like the top six, one of the best courses, and that's about an hour away from where I live. So I think the plan is to quality time with boyfriend, maybe some putting league, and maybe go hit the sixth best course in the whole world to keep my skills at the tippy top.
Now you
That sounds bland.
so no, there's a kind of a saying that we tend to use in disc golf where you need to learn how to win. But this is really your first opportunity in the Pro Tour, at least, to win. But you've had success in other avenues, so to speak. You won Am Worlds here in Wisconsin. You were in Madison, Wisconsin. That's probably the first place I remember seeing you and hearing your name, watching your game, thinking like, I think she can be pretty good at some point. And from there, you dropped off. I've listened to a few other interviews with you, and so I kind of have a general idea of, kind of some of the things that happened between then and now, as far as, you having to kind of regather your life, we'll say, after some financial issues that you ran into. Do you feel, how does this win compare to the Am Worlds win? Like, both of which were extremely exciting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to compare because the Am Worlds win and this win kind of happened to different different size. You know what I mean? Like back then, that was I don't know, similar but different because both wins are they mean so much to me. Both wins I think are and were kind of pivot points in my career. So winning that Am Worlds in 2016, that was the kind of the catalyst for my pro career. That was the I'm sure I could have gone pro, before then, but for me that was like a kind of a like cinching it and wrapping it up with a bow of like I have accomplished almost everything that you could hope to accomplish as an amateur player. An amateur world title is probably one of the highest things that you could accomplish, without playing professionally. So that was like a really huge kind of like sign off for my amateur career and to move forward into the next chapter in my pro career. And so I think there's a little bit of similarity in the fact that this is also really pivotal for me, being my first win since going on tour officially and my biggest success with West Side Discs. And I think I don't know, it feels similarly incredible, but I think this has a lot more um like a lot more power to it. Now like it's kind of been unreal the last couple of days just to kind of feel that I mean, I don't want to say fame, but kind of, you know what I mean? All of a sudden my name is like in the limelight and there are so many disc golf media outlets that are talking about my statistics or, that crazy putt that I ran. And we can get into that because it's a funny story. Um and so I think I don't know, I think this is really powerful. I think this is really huge and really powerful for me. And I think I'm really hoping that I'm setting myself up for just an amazing year. And honestly, if this is the biggest success that I have this season, I've already reached and surpassed some of the, albeit modest, goals that I have had for this season. Like I want to cash at some, as many events as possible. Top tens are super amazing. Top fives are super amazing. I've gotten an ace this year. I've gotten a couple thousand rated rounds, which is amazing. I've got a few amazing bogey-free streaks, which I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
proud to be known for. I've got the Sai Ananda, so pars
Mm-hmm.
mean a lot to me. Pars make the birdies count. So I this win is just it's so huge for me. I think on so many different tiers and so many different levels that I'm still even kind of realizing, like what this win actually means looking forward into the future and just kind of like for the future of my career and my personal life. Like this could be I think, and I guess maybe to summarize, Am Worlds was an incredible accomplishment, but I think this win, even just a Silver Series win, I think is life changing for me. I want to say this is going to kind of change the coordinates, change the direction that my life is going, and I think it's just so incredible.
We saw Westside released a support disc congratulating you. Is that still available? I was looking on the website. I didn't quite get a chance to finish poking around out there. Is that available that people can still support you and pick up a disc?
Yes. So a little bit of a plug. If you follow me on Instagram at Sai Ananda, there is a link in my bio that will take you to the page. And on that note, it was kind of incredible. As you may know, I was with Latitude 64 for six, I think almost 7 years, and I move over to West Side. And so West Side released this tournament warship to celebrate my victory. And incredibly enough, Latitude 64 decided that they wanted to share in that victory and kind of share their support. So they have actually released the disc overseas in Europe as well as the United States, which is like super huge. I don't think any other trilogy player has done that before. So you can find it at Latitude 64 CE, and you can find it at Dynamic Discs as well as Westside.com.
Well, I heard that's why House of Discs ended up buying Dynamic, just to keep you on the team, right? They saw you move over to West Side and they were like, we can't let her go. We'll buy your whole team. So
Yes, just
Yeah,
bring
you
them
were a
on over.
major bargaining yeah, major bargaining chip and all that, which is awesome. So let's talk about, you just said, that particular putt, and maybe before you dial into that specific decision making, just talk about your game this weekend. And was it any different than previous weekends, or what was the difference, if any, in terms of how this weekend went down for you compared to some of your previous outings this year? Like, what was the difference?
Well, I think this is going to be a really big year for me in like learning experiences. You know, I've obviously played a handful of bigger events and elite series and majors and stuff like that, but I don't think it really compares to how saturated I think your experiences become in disc golf when you are playing, every weekend for, whatever period of time that is. And so I'm really trying to absorb as much as I can from each event and just learn as much as possible, because one of my, Achilles heels is, I think, has always just been my experience. I've always kind of had the skills, the distance and the putts and the accuracy and stuff like that, but competitors have always kind of had the edge on me from the experience, whether it be just experience throwing on different courses and having a more diverse disc selection, or having the ability to kind of scramble in a different way, or whether or like mental experience, just having gone through those experiences so many times, your thought processes are a little bit different. So I would say that my practice and my focus and my intention for each event has kind of changed as they move forward. Looking back at Las Vegas, kind of, and Waco, there was definitely a different level of like hole analysis and strategy. So I think that showed in the amount of OB strokes that I got. And it could have been just kind of the way the courses were playing for me. It's kind of hard to say whether it's, correlation or causation and stuff like that. But my OB strokes, I think, really took me out of throwing and playing successful rounds in Vegas and Waco, because I would finish the round thinking, wow, I played pretty decent, I maybe it wasn't incredible, but I played pretty good. And then I would look at my scores at the end of the day and realize, okay, yeah, I did, the amount of shots that I threw were pretty good, but the penalty strokes on top of that kind of didn't reflect how I felt about my play. So that was a big learning experience there in just kind of managing that kind of throttle between like going for an aggressive play or sticking with a conservative strategy and taking the bird in the hand rather than the two in the bush and stuff like that. So I tried to make a couple adjustments as I moved into Waco, and I think I made some improvements there, but the finish at Waco was super duper rough for me, and I kind of wasn't able to manage my OB strokes again that weekend. And so when I went to Austin, it was definitely kind of first and foremost, don't go OB, and then you can
Sure.
kind of build on top of that. And then so like first and foremost, have that conservative strategy, and then you can toggle from there and kind of make conscious decisions on where you want to take your birdies, or take those strokes that you can. And I think that showed that focus that I decided to apply, I think showed in Austin. And then I obviously had a really great bogey free round there and did really, really well on LBs. So that was a huge learning experience. And then I think I took that learning experience going from Waco to Austin and applied it to this event. And the course, the B Rock mod, wasn't so tight with the OBs, and the ground wasn't super duper skippy, but there were definitely a factor in your aggressive play and whether it's worth going for that extra 50 to 70 feet of distance to maybe put yourself in a position for three, or you could try and give yourself that extra 50 to 70 feet and, flare out of bounds and end up taking unnecessary strokes. So that, I think, managing OBs and managing that toggle between aggressive and conservative play was a huge learning lesson, just in these last four events. And I'm hoping that I can kind of take that and apply that to the rest of my season, as well as kind of just learn from each new course that I end up playing and really try and kind of carve myself as a golfer and just take in as much as I possibly can, kind of.
So let's talk about hole 17 and 18 to finish out the round. I kind of described it on 17. Did you mean to lay up that short? Was that your plan right in front of that tree? Because it felt like you only cut off about half of that hole when I felt you could have been a little bit more aggressive.
So right in front of that tree, I definitely wanted to be maybe 15, 20 in front of that tree. It was probably hard to see, but I ended up releasing probably 5, 10 degrees to the right more than I wanted to for some reason. And so I got caught up in these little branches that were kind of dangling me down, and then it pushed me and slowed the disc down into right in front of that tree. I mean, I definitely wouldn't choose to have an awkward patent pending
Yeah.
right behind a tree in my strategy. So that I don't think I played that hole well the entire weekend. I don't think I had I maybe round one. I had a solid like a solid drive on that, but I was playing that hole for par 100%. In my mind, with my skill set, I didn't think that it was. I'm backhand dominant, and I just didn't think that the backhand line was worth having to putt for par if I went out of bounds. Or it. I guess I kind of play my head and my emotions a little bit. So if I think that a shot is going to be too risky and then it's going to cause like an emotional flare, I don't really need to play something that's worth a stroke but could cause me a stroke later on just because it kind of frazzled me missing a putt or missing a shot or something like that. So my game plan for that hole was definitely to play for par, but on rounds 2 and 3, absolutely did not execute the drive the way I I intended to. And then I guess to rewind just a little bit to hole 16, Kristen Tatar made the only birdie on that hole.
Mhm.
And I think that was, in my mind, that was a really huge and pivotal moment. Just going into that final stretch to have her have the solo birdie and kind of just creep that one shot closer going into 17 was super duper huge and potentially could have played a factor, I think, in my nerves and me kind of having that little error on that tee shot, honestly.
So then talk a little bit about 18 because you perfected the shot with the as you're saying the patent pending on 17, which was a very difficult approach. But then you have to go into 18, a water carry with some protective trees, OB all along the outside. It's not extremely long. Is it what I think it was 280, 272. So
Yeah.
run us kind of through what you're thinking on 18 because at this point, everyone at home knows you have about a 3-stroke lead, 2 or 3-stroke lead.
Yeah, yeah. So playing for that par on 17 felt amazing, especially since I think you were talking about it earlier, since everybody else went OB on that card and I was able to really maintain. So that was kind of a, okay, you slipped up off the tee, but you were able to rein it in and keep it together. And there was definitely a lot of nerves going into 18. Like you said, it's just short hole and it's should be a pretty stock shot. You throw it straight, have it hyzer into the green. Nothing super duper complicated. There's a few little bushes in there that I ended up getting caught up on in round 2. But going to that hole, I I hadn't checked scores at all. Kind of going into the round, I just told myself that I'm going to execute the shots that I know that I can execute the shots that I know that are within my skill set, within my range, that I know that I can accomplish, and whatever happens. You know, may the best player win. I'm going to play my best game, and I know they are, and whatever happens on the final putt of hole 18, I am going to be absolutely elated, not only for my performance, but for the performance of my competitors. So moving into 18, I really just tried to clear my mind of any kind of excessive thought like that and just focus on, throw the disc straight, hit your line, don't go too far. Because you don't really want to make the green and then go swoosh and skip past it, onto the sidewalk, even though that's, a pretty easy comebacker for par. But basically my thoughts going into this were just kind of like keep it together, you know. One last hole, just keep it together, one shot at a time, don't overthink it, execute those shots. So moving into 18, I can't remember who had the box, but after everyone teed off, I landed in bounds. I want to say everyone landed in bounds, if not in the circle, on that last shot. So after Kristen made it, because I didn't know scores, but I knew kind of in my heart and kind of in the back of my mind
You had
that
the
she
box,
was the
by the way.
one.
You let off on that
Okay,
round. Yeah.
yeah, I had to lead that off.
Hmm.
So that was definitely intimidating. So after Kristen made it inbounds, I thought she had made it closer because I came up kind of short and I was just, on the front of that little embankment basically there. So after everybody teed off and we're walking to the basket, I decided that that was the moment when I wanted to check scores and know if I needed to lay it up or if I needed to run it or just I needed to give myself that information to know how to kind of play it moving forward. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if I just had like panic brain and I was looking at the round total, not the overall total. But for some reason, I thought that I only had a 1-stroke lead on her going into that hole. And so yeah, yeah, you kind of see where this is going
Because
here.
I think with a
So
three-stroke lead, off the tee, even I attacked that hole differently. Like the way
yeah,
you drove, it was I want to say it was tentative, but you made it over the water and you kind of landed there on the front bank with a 3-stroke lead. Me personally, I throw that disc as hard as I can clear the water, clear the trees, clear the road. I'm OB on the other side, knowing that I could easily take a 4 and win. But when you laid up and made it
Yeah,
over, I was like, oh, that's a different approach, but awesome, go for it.
because I was just apparently in my own little world of panic, basically. And so I'm thinking, okay, she's inside the circle and she's closer than me. And if she makes this putt, she could tie us and move to a playoff. And Lord, I do not want to play off against this incredibly skilled and experienced player. Just a phenomenal player. So that was fear, pure fear. And so I'm thinking, I got to make this. I got to make this to secure the win. I
A
have to make
40-foot putt.
this to close the door. It was just outside of circle. So I want to say it was like 35.
Okay, yeah. You just got it
Yeah.
at 38, so I couldn't tell based
Yeah.
on where you were, but yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty close. I think I could see one of the little orange tufties that was just like right in front of my eye. So yeah, that was kind of the thought process of like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness gracious, she's closer than me. Ooh, oh no, I cannot let this go to a playoff. So I, instead of trying to, in my own scenario, instead of going into a playoff and giving her another opportunity, because if I give her an opportunity, I have every belief in the world that she has the capability of taking that opportunity. So, yeah, that was that was panic, that was do or die.
Well, you,
Basically.
well, and you did it. You drained a 35-foot putt for the win over the best players in the world. That has to be good.
And just
I mean, there's one thing to lay it up. The smart move, as everyone says, the pro moves, lay it up, drop it in, because you don't want to hit and roll and go be deep and then panic and miss the comeback and end up tying it and
no.
looking foolish. Any of that. But you, under what you thought was immense pressure, you dropped in a 35-footer. That has to feel great. Like knowing that you have that in
I
you.
I definitely did that. And I don't know. Part of me has always believed that I, have that in me. I in the past have kind of made a handful of pretty clutch putts like that. One huge moment for me was a big A-tier win at the United States Women's Rocky Mountain Disc Golf Championships. And Sarah Hokum had traveled to that event, and she was basically the big player in the field. And it was honestly a really incredible story and an incredible event to share with her. Sarah and I ended up tying the first round, the second round, and the third round, tying completely to go into a playoff. And I throw my shot, and I'm probably edge of circle 2, and Sarah throws her shot, and it's a 20-foot putt. So in a playoff, I'm first to putt, and she's 20 feet away from the basket. And somehow, with just the most raw willpower I could possibly channel, I canned like a 65-foot putt, and she was looking at that 20-foot putt to carry us to the next hole, and somehow by the grace of the universe had missed that 20-foot putt and got me the win. So I knew that I had it in me, and that was kind of what was going through my head as I was lining up that putt is, man, you've been putting pretty good. Um, you should definitely try, in my own scenario of having to make it for the win. You know, believe in yourself and place a bet, place a bet and swing that putt and see if you win that bet, and I I won that bet.
So I have to ask, you're traveling with Dad, right? This trip, but I didn't see him on the bag. You would think that maybe having a caddy would be useful, especially on maybe some of the conditions that we saw this weekend. Is that not your style? Would you rather carry your own bag, or was he busy playing? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it kind of is my style to carry my bag. I have the Latitude 64 Easy Go, So it's a pretty lightweight bag, even if it's full of, water and drinks and everything. So the main thing is he carries everything extra, so I don't have to
Mm.
fill my bag and carry a 50-pound backpack. So I can roll light and just carry my discs and carry my bare necessities, and then he carries, spare discs, jackets, extra towels, snacks, the the umbrella,
Umbrella.
the word. Yeah, umbrella. So I kind of carry my discs and water and kind of my bare necessities, and then he's there for anything else that I could
Okay.
possibly need, or if I throw a disc OB and I don't have time to retrieve it, I can always send him back to go grab a disc, which is super duper helpful. And
Getting the
so
water
he just
pops.
kind of, yeah, he helps me with, everything other than my discs. And he isn't playing. He's just kind of he's there to quote unquote caddy for me, and kind of support me, help with driving and stuff like that. And so yeah, he's
Okay.
the caddy that carries everything but the bag.
Then my last question I can think of right now off the top of my head regarding Texas State is round 3, and we don't normally talk about outfits in general, but the shirt you wore, was that more
Yeah.
was that more logistical for the conditions, or is that more stylish? Because I noticed you were
Um,
the only one. You don't see people wear that type of sleeveless shirt very often, and all I thought when I saw you on the first tee was, God, that's brilliant, because it's kind of rainy. I hate it when sleeves get stuck on my arms and whatnot. I'm like, or is she just trying to intimidate everyone with a gun show? I don't know. What is she trying to
yeah,
do?
totally. Well, it was a little bit of both. I love fashion and I love expressing myself through, my style and through my clothing, and that's something that I really enjoy just like as a person. But it was also for functional reasons. I decided to wear the leggings in case I needed to pull on rain pants and wear something waterproof. And then it was also probably like 75, almost 80 degrees. Like it was hot. And so that was kind of I wanted to be able to layer down and not, kind of like you said, not get that like
Mhm.
soggy sweats basically. So it's raining, I don't need to be sweaty and raining essentially. So that was definitely, I mean, the little wrap around my leg, purely style points, purely
It
superficial.
is, because
Definitely
I
don't need,
wasn't sure if it was one of
yeah.
those tendon wraps that some people wear under their knees or on their arms, but it's so that's just all okay, stylish, not
Yep,
bad. Somebody
yep,
asked me
just a
about
little
it. They're
bit.
like, do you know if that? And I said, well, it looks like one of those straps that you put on your leg for knee issues. But now I know it's just stylish. All right,
Yep, pure. It's like a handkerchief, pure
yeah.
stylish expression.
Because I've seen you wear handkerchiefs around your neck in the past before. That was always like kind of like a stylish thing. That's the image that I have of you a lot from U.S. women's last year in general and other places. But it made me think of last year U.S. women's. The big talk about you was, just like you said, how few bogeys you took. You went all, I think there's 5 rounds, and didn't take a bogey until like hole 16 or something on the final round. You were in contention for that up until, at that point. It would have been tough. I think you were just a few strokes out of it, but you were right there in the talks for top 2 or 3. It was kind of amazing.
Yes, that was just incredible. And I think, I mean, I guess just a little bit of insight. I think my clean golf is always kind of what has helped me kind of place and get the scores that I can. So I'm really hoping that this year I can not only maintain that safe strategy and maintain that par golf, but I think this year is really where I want to push my comfort zone into that more aggressive kind of elite level play that you see from so many of the women out there who are fearless with a driver and run some crazy shots and just go for that extra distance. So I guess just a little like dog years. That's something I love my consistent play. It obviously Sai Ananda is my tag on Instagram. I play for the pars and I know that if I keep it clean, the birdies will come. And that's definitely like a huge part of my strategy, but I definitely want to get
Mhm.
better at that
S-
more aggressive side.
So you've played and beaten now the best women in the world. You Where do you put yourself?
Mind blowing.
Yeah, well, not really. I've watched you play. You have a phenomenal putt. You have really good golf distance, and you're just very consistent. So when you look at the field and you look at yourself, do you kind of, where do you place yourself? Or when you look at the, or maybe a better question is when you look at those other women and you say, where can I improve my game so I can be as good as them?
Well, I don't know. I guess I just kind of I come from a humble background where, I've never really I mean, of course I think highly of myself, and I know that I have skills, but that's definitely I'm in a transition where I'm kind of going from thinking I'm the new pro, on the block. I'm kind of I'm a budding pro that still has some experience and has still has things to learn, and it's internally a little bit of a transition for me to kind of realize that I'm not just competing with the top females in the sport. I am actually participating as one of the top females in the sport. So it's kind of been interesting to watch that view of myself kind of shift a little bit and kind of move towards, seeing myself as that top level athlete rather than regarding myself as, as they are the top level pros and then I'm kind of the one who's coming in and stepping into it. So I think this win is definitely helping shape that view of myself and kind of regarding myself as one of the top level, females. I'm not sure um, where my ranking is at the moment. I'm not really sure where a 949 rating would kind of place me in the world right now, but I want to say maybe top 30 or something like that. Top 40, I'd want to say. So I definitely I have so much room to grow. I really in my heart and in my mind, I don't think that I'm even close to plateauing just in regards to my skill and development and my mentality and my strategy. I really think that this year and the challenges that I face in playing not only elite level courses, but playing these elite level courses for the first time, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how this year and competing with these phenomenal professional athletes is going to shape me moving on to 2024 because I definitely want to do more and better moving into 2024.
Uh, with that, the board has said it. I think Johnny has kind of alluded to it that this course was seemed like it was universally loved by spectators. And I know you're gonna probably have a little bit of a bias because, of course, you won on it. But what did you think of the course? And maybe you can separate yourself from winning it, or maybe not. But when you reflect back on this course, how it played, how to either your game or just in general for the FPO field, is this a course you'd love to return to, or is this a course where you're like, I played it, I won, but I'm ready to get on to the next course? Like, how do you kind of reflect on the course itself that seemed to be so beloved by the viewers?
Well, I think it was definitely refreshing. I think considering the courses that we've played so far in the season, in just in terms of like scoreability and playability,
Mm,
I think it was one of the more fun courses. I do have to say that I think the Beast was probably my favorite course so far that I've played.
okay.
Um, but I really enjoyed it. I think it was I enjoyed it with a little asterisks. I think it was very similar to courses that I've played in the past, Where I come from, it's usually pretty flat. Um, not a lot of elevation change, but a lot of trees to kind of shape the fairways. So I was feeling really, really at home with a lot of the tee shots and a lot of the approach shots, just kind of comparing them to courses that I play back home. So I think the course definitely suited my skill set. And I guess that's easy to say since I did play so well on it. I may tell a different story or it may have told a different story had I, shot 12 over on every round or something like that. But I think that it played very well to my skill set. It had open greens, which allowed me to approach and putt really well, which is something I practice quite a lot, about 150 feet to 30 feet. And then inside the circle is where I practice quite a lot. And then I guess, like you said, golf distance, I'm not really going to blow anyone away with the amount of distance that I have, but I do also have the ability to throw anything between a 300-foot shot and even pushing like a 410-foot shot. So I do have, like you said, that golf distance where it's not really going to blow you away, but I can still find myself out driving some top level players on occasion when I do choose to kind of like stretch it out a little bit.
That's
So
actually
I
what I
think
was
it
a little
played,
surprised about was watching you throw this weekend, and then there was a few times where like Kristen Tatar is known as a pretty far thrower, and you were walking up like 20 feet in front of her discs. I'm like, wow, like that's just, and you didn't look like you threw it hard. It's not like you threw a big flex shot. You just threw a really solid. You have a very compact form, and you were out driving Kristen Tatar quite a bit, and even Holland Hanley once in a while.
yeah. And I have a friend at home, Stuart, who likes to say I have sneaky distance. Where you wouldn't really expect it watching me throw, but then all of a sudden you'll see me park a 450-foot hole somehow, and you're like, how did she do? Where did that come from? You know? And so I guess, back to the course a little bit, I really loved it. The whole atmosphere of the course was really fantastic. You had the moss hanging from the trees, you had clovers everywhere, and I liked the lines. But I think some of my criticisms could be that some of the shots were, I guess I was hearing people say they were a little bit repetitive. So some of the longer holes, it was kind of, stretch out a distance shot and then you've got to approach down there. So I think there maybe could have been a little bit more diversity in some of the holes for a little bit more like score separation, I think. And the mound holes were a little different. The
Okay,
first
someone
one
asked
that we,
about those
They're
just now in
hard
the chat.
because
Someone
yeah,
said, "What
if you're
did you
not
think about
within,
them?"
if you're
So,
not right at the base of the hill, it felt like everybody laid up. So
yeah,
it was really approach dependent. I watched, we saw Owen hit a really nice long putt. I think we saw Tatar hit one as well. But I think you laid up everyone that I recall seeing. I believe you laid up right under, right to the base of the pin.
I laid up for bogey. I ain't messing around with none of that. Whoop, 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 whoop. None of that business. No, not for me. So that first one I thought was really interesting because it was weird because I wish I would have looked at the stats, but I don't think anyone two'd that hole. So everyone was either laying up for a three or a four or running their putts and not successfully making their comeback or making their initial putt. So that one I think definitely could use some adjustments. I think it would be fun to, if you maybe just scooch the tee pad a little bit closer and made it a little bit more like you can run for the birdie with your drive. And then you've got like an intense comebacker putt for your birdie or for your par if you miss the green. And I mean, I'm no expert in course design, that's my humble opinion. But I think that
well,
one could have been changed up a little bit.
and to back up, I guess what you're saying, as Billy on the board is saying, there were no birdies for FPO on either holes all weekend. So that is a piece of analytical feedback or data that you could go back and look at and say, hey, was it only birdied once or twice, or was it rarely birdied, as opposed to the distribution that you're looking for, when it comes to good holes. that's something that could be, improved upon, or at least reviewed, and then see if changes need to be made.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
that
I
makes
mean,
perfect sense.
there were plenty of birdies, out there on the course too. So it's not like, it necessarily needed another short birdie shot. But I think considering I want to say that's hole 10. So it's like right in that middle chunk of the round where you're kind of, at least in my mind, I'm kind of transitioning to, how am I going to finish the round? So after hole 9, it's kind of that subtle shift to, okay, I've got, 8 more to play. I've got, these many opportunities to get a handful of strokes, and then kind of that, classic finish strong mentality of like, keep trucking for the next, 4 or 5 holes, and then, finish strong on that final kind of gauntlet, I would say, with, 16, 17, and 18. Maybe not so much 16, but I think that's a nervy hole considering it is right before 17 and 18, and it's this kind of like, hey, I'm a birdie right here, don't you want to get this final, easy-ish two, kind of a, throw it down the gap and have it finish. Not a incredibly technical shot, but still you have to execute that shot. So that was definitely interesting. And then kind of moving on to the second mound hole, I think that one played better. I think that one definitely encouraged you to either, go for max distance off the tee and try and run the green, on your second shot, and, pray that you stick onto the mound and maybe you get that 3. So I think that one played pretty well just in terms of challenging people's decision making and aggression. And so that one didn't play too bad, but I also did notice that almost everyone was either laying up to the base of the mound or unsuccessfully running the green from their tee shot and ending up kind of inadvertently laying up anyway, basically. And then you just kind of pitch it up to the basket, and that was it. So, I mean, really minor things, otherwise the course really played really well. I thought it was a really nice venue. It was honestly a pretty beautiful oasis, kind of a respite from the hustle and bustle of Houston that you can kind of find. There's just so much going on in every nook and cranny of that city. So to go through, I left an hour early from my Airbnb, and I was only 35 minutes away from the course. But
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going to happen. There was one day where we got stopped at 2 different trains, and they literally weren't even moving. They're just
Oh,
stopped
geez.
on the tracks. So I made sure I was like an hour and a half early for every tee time. So
Uh,
it was
yeah.
really nice to go from these kind of super busy streets and really aggressive drivers and all of this hustle and bustle to all of a sudden you pull into the parking lot and you get out and you hear birds chirping and you kind of hear the breeze blowing through the trees, and it was just this interesting little oasis that they kind of have in Houston where there's just clovers everywhere, and it's just I thought it was a really beautiful course, and it was a pleasure to play, despite some of my, minor criticisms.
So, per the board and per what you just said, it sounds like I have to ask. Well, did you find any catnip? Apparently, that you have a cat on tour with you, or what's the story there?
So it's a pretty funny story. So during a practice round at Waco, I was with Erica Stinchcomb, and
Hmm.
I can't remember his last name, but it was a really cool photographer named Kevin.
Yep.
And we're just kind of chatting up and having a fun practice round, and we all release our tee shots on hole 15. We approach our tee shots, and we're looking at the basket to line up our approaches, and all of a sudden we kind of like look forward, and then we look at each other, and then we kind of look forward, and we're like, is that a cat on the literally on the green, like right next to the basket? Is that what are you seeing this too?
Not Cat
And
Merch, not
so
Cat Allen, an actual cat.
yeah, a feline.
Okay, a feline. Okay.
um yeah, and so and it was funny because I look over at Erica and she said the funniest thing. She's like, "Well, I'm not throwing my approach now. There's a cat next to the basket. I'm
Mhm,
definitely
mhm.
not doing that and risking hitting a cat." And so we all just picked up our lies and approached the cat as you kind of normally would, a little bit slowly, and not trying to like startle this cat or anything like that. And we approach it and we're like, doing all the little cat noises and cooing at it and stuff like that. And it's just this tiny, tiny little kitten, maybe anywhere between 6 months and a year old, but I wouldn't say more than a year old. And he literally just walks right up to us and starts like rubbing up against our legs and rubbing up against our ankles and like walking around. And so like I'm literally looking at this cat. I'm a cat person, if you can't tell. And I'm like, I don't need a cat. I don't need a cat. My dad has a cat. My mom has my mom has two cats. I have a cat and two dogs at home. Not my dogs, but yeah, my boyfriend's parents has two Jack Russells. So like I've got plenty of animals in my life. And I literally I'm picking up this cat and I'm looking at him like like, are you gonna take it? What are we gonna do right now? And Erica's husband was like, I don't think we can't do a cat. Erica's slightly allergic, and her husband was like, nah. And
Mhm,
the other guy on the card, Kevin, definitely didn't want a
mhm.
cat, didn't need a cat. So then
Yep.
all of a sudden I'm like, well, guess I have a cat now. I'll have to
Nice.
figure out how to deal with that. And so I went through Central Texas Pets Lost and Found, and I went through a
Mhm,
couple of Facebook pages, posted a handful of pictures. I checked local vets and shelters. I got him scanned for a chip. No chip, not neutered, just a just a natural boy that somehow ended up on the disc golf course. And I've speculated, how he got there, but there's no real knowing. He could have been a farm cat that, scooched over to the disc golf course. Someone could have, ditched him at the park, which kind of happens all the time, unfortunately. When you have a litter of kittens, you just kind of spread them around. And so when we were on the course, I'm just looking around, and there's a really busy road right next to B East. There's
mhm.
turkey vultures everywhere in Waco, and so there was just no way I was gonna leave that cat around. And so I spent the week trying to see if someone could foster him, or see if I could home him somehow. And I'm sure a disc golfer would have taken him, but the little guy just won my heart. He was so cool, and he ended up, to kind of like flash back a little bit, not to make the story too long, but he like followed us through like 7 holes. He followed us through the end of the round, basically. And we kind of
Wow.
coaxed him a little bit and was like, come here, come this way. But he literally just followed us through and was like, hey, um, I don't know that I need a home, but I kind of need a home, and you guys are nice. So I'm gonna follow you guys because I know it's good for me.
Mhm.
And so I ended up taking him back to my campsite, and we put him into my Prius, and we're like, hopefully he doesn't hate car rides. We're gonna figure this out. So we put him in
Mhm.
the car and we drive to Walmart and get our groceries for the day or whatever. And then we come back to the car and he's literally fallen asleep with like his face half smushed on a bag of chips. So we come back to the car and he's just asleep. The most relaxed, chill cat you could ever imagine. I got him a harness at Walmart and I put the harness on him, and he doesn't love it, but he doesn't hate it.
What cat
So I put
does?
a,
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he does the thing, yeah, where he's like, this thing weighs like 10 pounds and I can't move with this harness on or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So then I got a leash for him, and I started leash training him, and he took to it immediately, like
Oh,
no fuss, no fighting whatsoever. So he's born to be a road cat, basically.
Mm.
And I got a little box from the dollar store, filled it with a little bit of litter, and was like, "Here." And he's like, "Oh, cool, thanks." Boop boop, and completely litter trained. So just like
Nice, nice.
in every way that you could imagine, like a cat being the perfect travel cat, he basically is. I think I could probably even show you. He's just like,
Yeah, we saw him a little bit walking back and forth
yeah,
there, but all
he's
right.
just taking a nap
So you
on some
you
boxes right
you
now.
came out of Texas with a Pro Tour win, a belt buckle, and a cat,
Yeah, and an ace.
and an ace. Yeah,
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
technically
How
that
does
was the
life get
medal.
any better?
yeah.
How does life get any better? Come on.
You kind of said it, man. Like, and I kind of touched on it before. If these are the only highlights that I have for the year, and I don't do anything spectacular for the rest of the tour, I doubt it. But man, I'm gonna be pretty content and pretty happy with my performance so far, and just kind of I my heart is pretty full right now.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end our conversation. Wow, it's been so awesome to hear everything that you've experienced already this year. Like you said, already exceeding your expectations, already 4 for 4 on cashing in a year you just hope to maintain and get by. And here you are with a win in your back pocket, a cat that's already litter trained, and heading back for some relaxation and rest so that you can get ready for when the tour picks back up on the West Coast in just 3.5, 4 weeks, whatever it's going to be for you. Uh, we are, I think the entire world is as happy for you as you should be for
It's
yourself, and along with your family and the pride that should go along with everything you've accomplished here in the early part of 2023. Is there anything you want to say to the rest of the world? Any sponsors, ways that people can continue to support you? Give all your sign offs and plugs and support and social media handles and such.
Well, I'll be brief but corny, but I really definitely want to express my gratitude for my dad and my mom and my brother, who's Prius. I am traveling in. So much gratitude for my boyfriend, who just absolutely makes me feel free to go travel and do the things that I love. So, thank you to Sterling, and I definitely a shout out to my best friend Melody, who is dealing with a little bit of personal struggle with some cancer in her life. But I
Mhm.
I wasn't able to say it before, but I kind of, wanted to dedicate that win to her since she's going through so many things. And so just so much gratitude for, Team High Country, the team that I'm a part of back home, who's doing fundraising for me at local putting leagues and putting together fundraising tournaments, and everyone who is donating discs for me to raffle off to rally funds. My boyfriend is, raffling every other weekend to help support me. And so that I just definitely wanted to express gratitude for the amazing people in my life. And I can't even express enough gratitude for Westside kind of taking a little bit of a chance on me and giving me the financial support that I needed this year to accomplish the incredible things that I have done in the last, 4.5 weeks. So West Side Discs is just an incredible piece to my successes this year and to my ability to travel. So I have so much gratitude for them, and you can keep an eye out for the release of a West Side Tournament X bear with a really, really beautiful Sai Lotus stamp on it that's coming out on April 13th. I'm really excited about it. I was super picky about the logo and was like, can we change this? Can we change this? And so they worked with me, and I was so excited with how it turned out. And as I said before, you can follow me on Instagram at Sai Ananda. You can follow me on Facebook if you'd like to. The link in my bio on Instagram will take you to the West Side page, where you can pick up my commemorative Texas State Championship disc. And I have already received an overwhelming amount of support with my tour series discs, or not my tour series discs, but the Dimax discs that have come out so
Mm.
far. So thank you so much to everyone who has bought the Wu-Tang disc. You guys are overwhelmingly incredible. It's absolutely insane. And I'm sure I could talk for another 10 minutes about, of the gratitude I feel, and then the people support me, but I think that pretty much summarizes it.
Awesome. Well, again, we of course are super happy for you. It's been a heck of a ride in the FPO division this year, and seeing stars like yourself show up on a weekend like this and talk about trending in the right direction. I see you, 25th to ninth now, to first place, and like you said, just picking up those lessons in the first couple of events in the first couple of weeks to then have it all compile and then culminate on a weekend like this for you. The entire world loves it, and we just can't say it enough. Congratulations! Get the rest, travel safely, get the rest and the restoration and everything else that you need when you get back, and make all those connections again. And we're looking forward to seeing what else you're going to do here in 2023 and beyond. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I hope that this is only the beginning.
I
I think
guarantee
we're
you we will
confident in
have you
that.
on again.
Yes, we
I would
love
I
it.
would be I
All
would be
right,
happy
Si.
to.
All right. Love to you and your father. Travel safely, get home safely, and again, we'll see you probably in the next few weeks when you get back on the tour. We'll see you then.
Thank you so much, you guys. Have a
Thanks,
great
Si.
night.
All right. Take care. See ya. Bye.
Terry, I truly think it takes a special person to be able to take the shine away from Owen Scoggins on the weekend, because everybody roots for Owen. I mean, she is one of the
Mm-hmm.
most
Mm-hmm.
charismatic people out on tour, but this weekend, I truly felt that everybody was rooting for Sai. And it wasn't just
Yeah.
spectators. I think, based on some of the social media posts, I think some of the pros, maybe that weren't necessarily in it, were rooting for Sai to win as well. Because she's kind of a known commodity. As she said, she hasn't been on tour, but she's been around the scene off and on.
Mm-hmm.
And we could tell just from this interview her passion for life in general. So I think watching that, if again, I know I'm a sucker for Owen Scoggins winning just on multiple levels, but I was rooting for Sai, hands down. After that first round, it was like, cool, let's go. I want to see Sai win, and it was a pretty amazing weekend, to be honest.
Yeah. Congratulations, as she said, so many things that she's learned, and then what is that? 6 different winners
Mm-hmm.
in FPO
Yep.
that we've seen. I mean, what is that? We've talked for years about dominance and or a lack of parity within the division, because it's always, well, was it Page or Cat or Hokum? For so many years it felt like those were the only 2 or 3 on any given weekend, and now clearly we're proving any and
Mm-hmm.
every given weekend we have different contenders. I think Paige was, of course, in the field, and she said how she was so excited to see it unfold this weekend. So, congratulations yet again. Like you said, impossible. It feels impossible not to root for her, and everything she said here tonight just backs that up. It was awesome to see. So, yeah, and dare I say, I mean, what a weekend then, in a sense, in a similar but different sense, of course, for West Side, in that on the other at another big event taking place, again, selfishly one I was covering, but on the MPO side, playing for West Side, another big fan favorite in Matty O, and him taking down this weekend as well. So all in all, not a bad weekend for Team West Side.
Yeah, both of their top players on their team. What is their team called? It's got to be something clever, I'm sure. The Warlords. The Warlords are the top level team of Westside. There's only 2 of them. It's Matty O and Sai Ananda.
Okay. Well,
So
they were
getting
warlords this weekend.
getting 2 wins in a weekend is great for any manufacturer, and especially a smaller.
Yeah.
It's funny because we consider Westside like just a smaller uh, entity when now they are a part of this much bigger entity, possibly the biggest one in disc golf, but they are a subset of that. So it's pretty exciting it's got to be exciting for them to see that they made some bets over the last year or two, and they're paying off.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of which, I'm going to jump right into just a couple of the results that we saw over at the 18th Open at Tallahassee, sponsored by Visit Tallahassee. Just when you thought the the event name over in Texas was a long one, technically this one probably challenges it in terms of the overall characters. But on the FPO side, we'll stick with that train of FPO division. When it was all said and done, Morgan Linz held off her twin sister, Jordan Linz, to take down the A tier victory. So, Morgan, even though her sister, Jordan, you look at the last two holes between the two of them on 17 and 18, Jordan, excuse me, picked up 3 strokes to cut the deficit from 6 down to 3. She picked up 3 strokes in the last 2 holes, but it didn't matter. Morgan would go on to be your champion. And then finishing also on the podium in the 3rd spot was Florida's own Ellen Widboom. And I think literally all 7 of the FPO competitors from the Open at Tallahassee, I will see in a couple days here at the Throwdown the Mountain, which is another story. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Some stories relating to that. But I think all 7 of those same women, we will see. Let me just double check real quick.
Is there any talk of
Um,
the Linz twins going out on tour, or are they kind of sticking with Florida? I mean, they took
uh,
what, second and third at Am Worlds last year behind Cadence, right? Cadence
yeah.
Burge.
So that is something maybe I'll find out more this weekend. That I
Okay.
do not know off the top of my head. And just to say it, there was 7 women in this weekend's event at Tallahassee. I think all 7 of them are playing at Throw It on the Mountain, and then there's 5 additional women. So there's a total of 12 women in the FPO field this weekend at Throw It on the Mountain. But we'll talk about that later. So anyway, one final time. Morgan Lynn's your champion. Congratulations to her. Jordan Lynn's her sister, taking second, and Ellen Widboom taking third. So that's what you saw on the FPO side. On the MPO side, I say it all the time. One of my favorite parts about going to tournaments that aren't just on the silver. What is it even called? It's not the silver series, so it's what
It's
this
just a
is
silver event.
silver. Okay, the silver event and the elite events is getting to see so many of these other next up and coming superstars, and a few of them that come to mind that I've seen sometimes in the past, and we'll see more of. Braden Sides, who I ultimately interviewed or talked to and filmed. Aiden Scott, whose name I spelled wrong, but I saw him. Dylan Sepala. Just these are players that we're going to see in the next year, 2, 3, 5 years, and then they're going to be out on the tour or they're going to be playing more regularly, and we're going to see them on lead cards. And I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I saw that guy in Tallahassee. I saw how he handled himself. Those are the kinds of things that I get so excited about seeing. But when it was all said and done, none other than Team West Side, the warlord himself, I think, as you reference, Matteo Oram, did take this down. It did feel like it was his to win. He did have a sizable, again, it's always just on paper, but he did have a pretty healthy um, margin when it came to just straight up player ratings when you looked at him for the weekend. And I was going to say he was rated 1040 coming into the weekend, and his next closest competitor was rated 1019, Silas Schultz at 1018, and then a lot of 1018s to, so on and so forth. So coming into it on paper, he was definitely a favorite. And when it was all said and done, well, he came out ahead. So congratulations to him. He shot 1055, 1043, and 1037 golf. So just a little bit above his rating. And to talk about the top 5 or so ish spots, again, Orem, your champion. Silas Schultz ended up finishing in second after a great second and third round. Mediocre first round, really charged hard in rounds 2 and 3. Casey White, who had, again, a mediocre first round, charged back pretty hard in the final round to get the third podium spot. So Orem, Silas Schultz, Casey White, and then Sullivan Tipton in fourth, tied along with Braden Sides. They finished in a tie for fourth. Aiden Scott in sixth, along with Mark Chapalonis from the vlogs. DW Haas and Randy Duke. We're going to go with Randy Deck. Finished eighth, and then a two-way tie for 10th with Dylan Seppala, as I mentioned, and Matthew Alexander. So top 10, open at Tallahassee. And here, aside from the great play and the incredible park, the historic park that everybody loves, and the layout, we saw this for the Silver Series last year. My best guess, and go ahead and mark it on your tapes, because that's what you do. Put it on your calendars. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another promotion back to either a silver or an elite series for the Open at Tallahassee. I mean, I feel like they're doing everything right, and it's probably just a matter of timing
Well,
to
didn't
get
you
figured
say
out. That's my guess.
one of your social media posts, they had 20,000 in added cash?
20,000
That's
added
a
cash.
pretty good start to at least get on as a silver event. And that's not enough to be a pro tour event, but if you're able to start with 20,000 and you're just an A tier or whatever they happen to be, and I'm throwing just in quotes there because being an A tier is a lot of work. Yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see some more Florida established pro tour events, because we'll get into the conversation right now. Next weekend is Throw Down the Mountain, which has been talked about as a possibility for a silver event for a few years now, run by Mike Barnett. And this week, the big news was that Paul Macbeth purchased the property along with Dylan Cease, the MLB pitcher, who is going to be opening day for the White Sox, easily one of the top 5 pitchers in the league right now, who happens to be an avid disc golfer, a friend of Paul. So we now have this Throw Down the Mountain venue that hopefully will become a permanent course. And I think that is, if Paul has his way, which he usually gets, my guess is that this might become a stop. Whether it's a silver event, whether it's going to be a pro tour. I don't know, and I haven't been there. I've only seen it on footage. I don't know if it could be a pro tour event based on the course, but it feels like it would be a really good silver event. But who knows? Things could change now that we own the property. And when I say we, I mean we as a community.
We as in you, Dylan, and Paul.
As in I didn't invest anything in it, but... I'm glad you locked up. I'm glad you locked up because nobody needed to hear whatever you said.
All right, am I back now?
Yes.
Okay. Have numbers been made to the purchase of that? And I asked that we're on the Nick and Matt show last night. I ain't got time for that. But they probably, I'm sure, spilled some information and or provided some, and I'm just wondering. Citizen X is saying 1.6.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm not going to share anything that I don't know if is or isn't shareable at the moment. But yes, someone's saying over a milli. Is there a milli?
Sure.
1.3. So people are just making up random numbers now, because 1.6 and 1.3 and then over a milli are all.
I mean, that's all over a milli, right?
They said 1.2. Somebody said 60 acres, 1.6 million. Okay, so lots of people are talking about 1.2 million. Over $1 million, obviously. And I don't know what they said last night, so I'm just going to go on what I believe. I don't think there's any doubt. Well, let's back up. they could do whatever they want with the property in theory. So like there's a course and there's been 6 or 8 or 10 or 29
Hmm.
iterations of the course. If you ever go out there with Greg Hosfeld, he'll tell you where every pin and every basket's ever been,
No,
because he was one of
please.
the
I don't
original.
want to.
He was one of the original designers out there, and one of the guys that made it all happen.
Mhm.
I believe from way back in the day. So and if you play with any old school people, someone like a Charlie Goodpasture or whomever, again, everyone will tell you where every pin's ever been. I think I could map them out, and I've only been there for a few years. So anything is possible. I mean, there's clearly a course that we're going to see this weekend that has become kind of the final version of the course that we've seen for Throwdown on the Mountain,
Mhm.
and then a slightly scaled back version of it for some of the lesser skilled divisions. That's been particular to Throw Down the Mountain and to Mike Barnett and Sun King. In theory, we all know now that they own the property, Dylan and Paul could go out there literally with bulldozers and do whatever they want with it.
Mhm.
So, what version of the course will we see and is possible may or may not be at all like what it is today. And as people are talking about it, 63 acres, 60 acres, whatever the case is, somewhere in that neighborhood, there's a lot of property out there that is not being used for disc golf as we speak. I mean, a lot. I mean, you as you roam around out there, if you're a disc golfer and you're roaming around out there, it'd be weird if you were not, unless you're one of the cows, I guess. If you're roaming around out there, you're like, oh, this would be a good spot for a hole, or oh, hey, this could be a tee or this could be a pin. There is a ton of that out there, and I'm sure Paul throughout the last decade has had plenty of those very thoughts. In fact, we've talked about some of those. So the a course of any caliber and design could then happen. And just to bring this full circle, I think one of the challenges that way one of the many reasons why we maybe haven't seen this as a silver series or on the pro tour, a cell phone signal has traditionally kind of sucked out there, and b, which obviously then prohibits live, and then b, because it's been rented property for all these years, we haven't seen permanent T pads put in, like cement T pads. We haven't seen a permanent structure of that sort, and they're essentially temporary T pads. And one of the primary basics for our Elite Series events and our PDJ majors and so on and so forth are a certain degree of T pad of whatever that is, but they have to have T pads that are of a certain standard,
Mhm.
and that's just a commitment that someone on a temporary renting the property for a 4 or 6 week basis that Mike Barnett and Sun King have done for the last decade has not been a practical solution for them to do. Now, again, when this land is it can be used exclusively for disc golf, all of those options are now put on the table. And you're talking about a couple of guys that have a little bit of money in the bank that could then be able to afford to do so and make it practical. And I think there's options of, if this becomes either free or pay to play or a membership based scenario, whatever the case might be, it's now going to be a permanent disc golf course that just opens up a million more possibilities on the property. And I think that should be the most exciting thing for all of disc golf is just the fact that everything's now on the table. So after that dialogue or that monologue, I wonder if there's anything that's been said that maybe I either misunderstood or contradicted from what was said last night. But Tim's on the board saying they were talking about a lifetime membership for $2,500. Ryan saying he sees a future where the pro tour starts in Florida. Um, here's another challenge that I know personally. This is kind of just outside of the town or city of Brooksville. This is essentially an old quarry, and cow pasture right now. There's not running water on the property. There's not electricity on the property. Like there's clearly infrastructure. Whatever ends up going there is one thing, but infrastructure is going to need to be established out on the property. And so those are things that I think a lot of people either don't know or don't realize, but that's going to be part of this overall process. So I'm excited to see what the future has. I'm excited to see how an event like Throwdown the Mountain and Sun King, how that relationship continues and in what form that continues and what they're doing. I'm excited to see all of the possibilities, but you've got two guys that love disc golf that do have a little bit of money. Um, yeah, it's I think anything's possible.
Did they get any cows with the purchase?
That's a good question.
I mean, they got the land.
You can stick your head up a cow. No, no. That I don't know. Um, but I'll find that out by the end of the weekend. And real quickly, you speak of cows, I'll speak of goats. Uh, Ken Climo was out on the property yesterday and ultimately celebrated a birthday. So happy birthday to
55.
Ken. Uh, Barry Schultz, of course, one of his biggest competitors and adversaries for better part of a couple decades, celebrates a birthday today. So happy birthday to Barry Schultz today. But yeah, Kenny was out here, and the rumor was that he had a little newfound excitement, maybe in his voice and or just about the idea that it's staying this property, which he's of course very familiar with as well, and has competed here for a number of times. It's staying within disc golf because it was about to be lost to a non-disc golf entity to maybe never have another event at it again, or certainly to never have another event at it again. Just to hear that this property, which has become very special to Florida and Florida disc golfers, that it's going to remain within disc golf and it's going to be in the hands of Paul and Dylan. So yeah, it's just really cool. And I know, Johnny, you would have a slightly different air of excitement and enthusiasm had you, once you get down here and see that it's just become a really special place. And I selfishly can say that because I've been here now for this will be my 9th throw down the mountain out of the 11 I think that they've had. This will be my 9th year in a row of being here for it. So I've certainly experienced, so much of that magic and beauty that the Florida disc golfers have as well. I mean, this is now an event that I think is spread out over 6 weekends. So 4 weekends of play over 6 total weeks where this course is available. Can you think of a more, I don't want to say spread out, but can you think of a more encompassing or just a larger scale magnitude single event, Johnny?
No, I would be curious to know how many total players that is.
We could do some math.
I'm not going to do math.
Smart could.
No.
But anyway,
math.
No, I mean, he's selling out every weekend.
Correct.
And so you think about that, some people run 1 or 2 big tournaments a year. He's essentially running, a big tournament for 4 out of 6 weekends, all on a temporary course, without electricity or water. I mean, hats off to Sun King and Mike Barnett. So, and I'm not just saying that because he's going to pay me.
But he is going to pay you, right?
But I think he is going to pay me. So,
well, let's keep the news
anyway
in the southeastern portion of our country, and we're going to move up just a little bit to Appling, Georgia. The Champions Cup announced, I guess technically I think the announcement was today, but yesterday you could see on the registration that the Champions Cup opened up 12 more spots, 8 in MPO.
Am I in now?
4 in FPO. No, Terry, you just barely missed the cut. But they're not just going to open up to the next people on the wait list. It is going to be play-ins.
What? Okay, so I'm basically in.
You're basically in. I mean, just get down there, play WR
Where's the
Jackson.
first tee and what's the saying? Where's the first tee and what's the course record?
And what's the course record? That's right.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
So we've got, and the play-ins are only open to the people who were on the wait list, I believe, when they opened up. So I believe that's 26 or 27 MPO, and I believe 9 or 10 FPO. There were 16 touring pros on that wait list. 16. Half of them are not getting in. I have to wonder how many are going to bother showing up. to play in. Just if you are, and I'm not picking on him, Casey White,
Who
and you're
finished
not
third this weekend.
who finished third this weekend, but if you're not in the area, we'll say, now he's different because he'll probably be in the area. He tours.
He's technically there today, but that's
Yeah,
another story.
exactly. But if you
In
weren't
Appling,
in the
but yeah.
area, would you travel out of your way to go there? You know, and I know Casey's actually been practicing that course pretty religiously over the last few weeks. And he did last year as well. He went there real early last year, according to one of the interviews I listened to from him. But anyway, would you bother going? Knowing that if you're not James Conrad, if you're not Kevin Jones, there's a good chance you're not getting in. And the second question is are some of those big guys not going to get in? Are we going to, because W.R. Jackson is a course where you could go out and shoot a couple under par. You could go out and shoot a couple over par, and your round didn't feel that different. It's heavily wooded. It's long. There's a lot of danger to get into. I'm actually, I'll say I'm excited to know who does and doesn't get in, but I'm also disappointed that it had to come to this for some of our pros, as we discussed last week. So it's going to be fun.
Well,
it's going to be fun to hear people chatter about this.
Well, and just right off the bat, for starters, I take a look at the wait list, which I'm going to put in the chat for anyone that cares to look. As I'm looking at it, some of these people are I'll say more obvious. And first of all, like you said, if you're on the road and you're touring and it's logically it's a 4-hour trip for you, that maybe is a no-brainer, right? That it's no big deal. Of course, I want to play in the major. I'm going to drive the 4 hours I'm trying to get in. Somebody who might be more than that, or says, well, if I don't get in that, then maybe I take 2 or 3 straight weeks off. You know, they'll have to obviously wrestle with that decision on their own. But then you look at a few of the people, like, I just think right off the top of my head, someone like a Matt Dollar, or an Evan Scott who lives in South Carolina. Some of these people that are like, it's not quite their backyard, but it's kind of their backyard. They seem like a no-brainer. Like, oh, well, I'm going to for sure go try. Now, I'm trying to think of somebody who's maybe kind of sort of on the tour-ish. You know, Ben Wolf. I don't know where Ben lives, or Ben is out of, but like you said, will he then still go take his shot? Yeah, maybe. There's so many other people that I think are for sure going to, though. I mean, you got to assume Aaron Gossage, Ezra Aderhold, Andrew Marwee, Double G, Andrew Presnell, Kevin Jones, Austin Hannum, James Conrad, Nate Perkins, Luke Humphreys, Noah Meinsma. Those guys are all, Casey White, Tim Barr. Those guys are all on the tour. You have to assume they're going to. They built it into their tour schedule, maybe prematurely, but they built it into their tour schedule. You have to assume they're planning on it. Yeah. So, it's a great question. And then you said 4 spots in FPO?
There are 4 spots in FPO out of the 6 people. I thought there was 8.
5.
But there's
now as of right now, it shows 5 women on the waiting list, and I do not know Silva Saranen. Otherwise, you have Leah Sinigini, Haley Childs, who lives right there, Jessica Weiss, and Emily Beach. So 4 of them, you know, are 3 of them are touring players. I do not know Silva personally, and Haley Childs I know lives nearby, but isn't necessarily a touring player, but would likely still come give her a shot at earning her way in. So
yeah.
Anyway,
it wouldn't. Yeah, I guess. I said it wouldn't shock me if one of those FPO didn't make it in, or didn't even bother to show up, and then all 4 of them just get in. That would not shock me either.
As I'm guessing Carney is either being funny or not, but yeah, someone initially said, is there going to be 5 on a card, or Carney had said hole 18 and hole 18A and 18B plus ghost cards. No, none of that silliness. And we said it last week, when there's effing rain out there and everything is delayed by 1 hour, and then the whole thing gets
a whole round gets cut out.
Or a round, or some people have to complete a round the next morning, and blah, 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 and we run out of daylight. I'm not gonna say I told you so, and I know
Yeah,
a
you
rain
will.
delay could be 30 minutes, or it could be or it could be 4 hours, and it is what it is. But you're the more
If
you
it
push it,
if it's close,
right?
I can guarantee you're going to get an "I told you so" from Terry Miller. Count it.
Yes, we're officially playing with fire at that point, right?
We are.
So anyway, all right. So that was announced what today? You're saying, or
Now,
yesterday, or
I believe
recently?
the actual announcement went out today, but I did see the spots open up yesterday on the wait list, and I had gotten some inside information, which is why I made the joke last week with Paige Pierce to maybe not necessarily count on Nate Perkins because I knew that they were going to be
He
opening up.
may attempt to qualify,
He may
yeah,
attempt to
or
qualify.
maybe, as Paige said, maybe he's 100% committed
Yeah.
to caddying, and he removes himself from even attempting to qualify. I mean, that's obviously possible too. So,
100%. That could happen.
all right.
I wonder if it's going to be a
Um,
cost. I wonder if they're going to charge them or if it's just like, hey, here's qualifying spots. You're on the wait
kind
list.
of like USDGC has like the
Yeah.
initial like $50
Yeah.
fee.
Hell yeah. I'd milk them for another 50 to $70. I call it a
And then
stupid
make a
tax.
donation. Yeah, no, make it a donation to a some kind of charity. Then
Yeah. I mean, I don't care where the money goes. I just say you milk them for some money and call it a tax, a silly tax, brainless tax, a not clicking fast enough tax.
some of them did, some of them didn't. All right. Well, I guess we will see how this all shakes out. Looking forward to it. Let's take a quick look. I didn't know if there was. Obviously, it felt like everyone's mind was on one of those two events that we just talked about this last weekend, being Tallahassee and Texas. Was there anything else out there that
The
usually we
only
kind of
other
talk about 8
news,
years?
and this was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday because it was my mother's birthday. It made me reminded me. The world's registration opened up, and did you see, Terry, who the very first person to register was? Number one.
Was it like James Conrad
It was
or
Ezra
somebody that
Aderhold. It was close.
Ezra? Okay.
Ezra, who was on the wait list for Champions Cup. So he was the very first person to register when it opened. So congratulations to Ezra, number one on the board and in our hearts. But ultimately,
There
the
we go.
world's registration is now open, and the world's invite list was also posted. Now, this is obviously a little different because, and I'm going to drop a little bit of PDGA knowledge on you that I didn't know until last
Oh
week.
gosh.
You might already know it, Terry. There was a big discussion as to why the PDGA didn't email everybody for Champions Cup. Like, hey, why not email anybody? The PDGA actually has a policy about that says events cannot email players unless they're invited to a tournament. And for Champions Cup, there was only 20 or 30 people that were invited, I think, out of, because it's an early, it's still pretty young. So I think I could be wrong with the 20 or 30 number. Maybe it's as much as 40. I don't know. But so those people got invites. Now for Worlds, I believe the World invite list is much longer, which is why a lot more emails went out. And my understanding is the PDGA has a policy about the emailing to help cut down on potential abuse and spam of their members. Because the last thing I want is another email from Terry Miller just because I registered for an event, or maybe I'm in his area. He's asking people for money. Hey, do you guys have any sponsorships or things like that? I mean, because that's what some tournament directors would probably do. Now, maybe
Some
they wait.
do. Some in Wisconsin have apparently abused this spamming policy already. I won't name any names. Not me.
Not you. So that is the reason why the announcement went out the way it did. That's why they don't email. Now, that might change in the future. That's going to be, I'm sure all this stuff now is on the table. They're going to talk to about it. Should there be an exception for majors? I could understand that. Like, there's so few of them. PDGA's running them. I could see an exception to where the PDGA does email out everybody who has qualified, not just invited, but qualified for this to alert them. But that is the current reason why the PDGA doesn't do that. It's going to require a policy change at the PDGA spot. So my guess is it'll probably be something that's discussed at the next meeting of the PDGA Mines, and things will happen. And I don't know what that is, because I do not have any insider info. I just figured I would share that information with everyone out on the board to know why some of those things don't happen. It is to help cut down on abuse of your email by tournament directors. So
There's one thing I like to abuse. It's maybe not email. No, I don't.
Nah.
Okay. Well, that is good to know. And it is funny. Someone had just posted something about, and I don't know exactly the full context, but they said something to how ancient of a system where you have to register. And if talking about a tournament, I don't consider that quote unquote ancient at all. I mean, let's be real. Someone, let's put it this way: you won an event last year. That qualified you to play in the Champions Cup this year. What if your life's different? You're not on tour. You're injured. Like, there's a million reasons why you may not come to this tournament that maybe on the other side of the country or in another, because you won a freaking event in Estonia. I don't think you all
Ananda. Sai
I
Ananda
just don't think you should
not coming to this event. She just literally won an event. She played okay last year. She took top 10 at USWDGC. You would think she's in the top, 50 women. She had no interest in going to this event based on her touring schedule. So
say, well, you're registered. Thank you. You're back. You're right. You're backing up my point. Like,
yeah,
you still have to show that you're
Yep.
You're interested and you're dedicated and you're putting forth the effort to show that you're committing to this event capacity. Because otherwise, if they just registered everyone that was eligible, well, then you'd have to scale back the eligibility considerably because you can't have 400 people registered for the event.
And then you have to adjust what your registration policy is. Like I said, Manabu, who's the highest rated player. You've got Daryl Nodland, who's like a 1030 something plus rated player who plays one event a year.
North Dakota, South Dakota,
yeah. EMAC, who's still 1030 rated, but who, congratulations, took second place at his first event in like a year at Texas State.
He's a world champ.
But he's a world champ. Should you just be
put him in the Hall of Fame? Give him a disc for signing up. I mean, like there is this interesting notion. And I'm all about rewarding and thanking and providing some perks to some people for some reasons. But a lot of people want to stretch perks and not Nate Perkins want to stretch perks out to being 100 things deep in 100 different eligibilities. And if you fulfilled every one of those, then there's going to be no one's going to be special for any reason.
And as I've said, like, even if you automatically register somebody and you wait for them to say no, even if you automatically register somebody and you wait for them to say no, that doesn't change the issue that we had, which was the bad communication. If Ezra was registered for this and it went 2-3 weeks and no one heard from him, they pull him off the registration. There's no difference in what happened. That's my idea. Now, maybe the argument is, you just lock in all these players. Every tour player gets locked in for X amount of time, but then we're going to have the issue. Do we have the problem still of, do we care if these events fill? That's really the next question. Do we care if there's 100 people playing or only 70? Those extra 30 that could fit, does it matter? I mean, do we care if the guy who's 999 rated, who waited there to open up, if he plays? I don't know, because it used to be that those bottom people were all feeders for money to the top pros. That's how we made a bunch of the money and made up for the purse. That's less and less relevant now. Not that those don't still count, but if you take out 20 or 30 people at $350 a piece, $6-7 grand out of the purse on we'll just probably say a $75,000 purse is my guess, somewhere around there, maybe more than that. Maybe I'm miscounting, but I don't know. That's a whole nother question that we need to have.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like this, you're invited largely based on the fact of having wins or some other accreditation uh, from the year or from the prior year, which is very different than how the USDGC does it. It doesn't have to be. And in theory, you could win 20 flex starts on the BGA within the BGA 20 flex start seat tiers place with
Yeah, Terry,
players at it on wins.
I'm cutting the video to you. I might just cut you completely because you're super choppy and it's almost totally impossible to understand what you're saying. So,
well, that's good.
There. So I just cut video to you right now. So, but you're still here.
Oh,
maybe
good.
Maybe
well,
that'll help.
Well, here then I can do all sorts of things I shouldn't be doing here.
No, we can still see you. You can't see us now.
Oh, darn it. Okay. Anyway, point being, all these majors have different criteria for how you either register or how you qualify for them. And so we have one blanket statement or one blanket that covers all of them if we're going to continue to have different criteria. USDGC's criteria to play is different than Worlds, which is different than Cup. So straight ratings, whatever, there's just not one blanket scenario or solution. Are you still there?
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Well, with that, I don't have a problem cutting loose here. I'm an hour ahead of you guys, and I got a bunch of stuff to do anyway. Well, I guess with that, we're gonna yet again thank Sai Ananda and congratulate her on her incredible performance this weekend. Congrats to her. Of course, congrats to Vinny, who took it down on the MPO side. And then here in Florida, seeing Morgan Linz take it down along with Matty O on the MPO side over at Tallahassee. Great weekend. If you guys aren't enjoying disc golf live or post-production, I don't know what the hell you're doing. But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to Sai for joining. And with that, I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, Johnny V, along with Sai. That was episode 448 of Smashbox. And I'm signing off. As next week when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashboxTV.
Hi. Welcome to episode 448's After Show, where it's just me. I wasn't going to come back, but then I decided, why not? Just for a few minutes. Yeah, Terry's pulling up Netscape Navigator as we speak. You know, before we started the show, I chatted with him, and he was glitchy, just like he was tonight. And I said, hey, you're really glitchy. And he's like, nah, I can't be. I was just on a podcast. It was great. I'm like, well, no, you're glitchy, dude. And he was like, nah, I don't understand. Let me reboot. He rebooted, and it was a little bit better. I could still catch it a little bit. But it seemed like it got worse and worse as the night went on. which is why I kind of took over a lot of the interviewing for Sai Ananda, something that I usually relegate to Terry Miller. I usually let him chat. But instead and Sai was easy because I could throw her a 5-second question and she went on for 5 minutes. Makes things really, 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 really nice. Yeah, this is the after show solo. I won't be too long tonight. I just wanted to kind of catch up with everybody, make sure everyone's doing okay. Let everybody know that, in fact, I don't even know if I'll release this part as a podcast because it's not going to, I promise I'm not going to be long here tonight. I do want to apologize to, someone reached out to me and I need to check my email about why they were not added to the $2 level on the list. And I forgot to manually update it. So it'll be updated automatically in the next couple days at the end of the month. So I'll make sure to get that taken care of. You know who you are who reached out to me. Probably a new $2 supporter over the last probably about a week and a half or so. But so I'm going to specifically say my apologies. And I promise your name will get there next week. And for those of you that don't know, obviously I run skipbase.com. We've got a new front page, which is working like 99% really well. The 1% that doesn't work is a little bit of a mobile glitch that I'm working through on the menu. I'm hoping to kind of put something out there as far as the new content management system. I'm going to have articles about, I just put up a big article about Music City Open, you know, who I think is going to perform well, a little bit about the history of the event, what to expect, all those fun things. So that's out there right now. I hope to do that frequently. If anyone's interested in becoming a fantasy disc golf expert, and it's as rigorous as writing a few articles and calling yourself a fantasy disc golf expert, you're welcome to. I got a site open for you. I sent out a really big email on the newsletter as to why and what's going on with the front page and why we're doing it the way we're doing it now. Basically, it's because a couple things. Just a central location for information about fantasy disc golf is going to be nice. And some monetization. It's more spots to put ads. Who doesn't like ads? I get like about 100,000 views a month on the site. And that was before this front page. I don't know if there's going to be much more of that or people are just going to skip the front page. I don't care either way. But that could be a small chunk of change. Not much, literally a small chunk of change. If I can eventually knock out some ads on there, whether they're just Google ads or if I reach out to the community, the disc golf community, and they want to put a big old banner on the front page and pay me $10,000? Question mark? For a week? We'll see. I don't think anyone's going to pay me that. Sam Martin says, have you asked ChatGPT about Skip Ace yet? I have not. I've played around with ChatGPT, and I actually, if you go to the website, you see some of the images that I use. One of them is created with Midjourney. There's one of a girl throwing a frisbee in a woods. I used Midjourney and just literally typed girl throwing frisbee in woods, and that's what it came up with. I did use ChatGPT to rewrite a couple paragraphs. I just had some bullet points that I wanted to nail out, so I put those in, and it gave me a paragraph. I edited it, kind of adjusted a few things. The quote-unquote problem with ChatGPT is that all the information stops at 2021, so it's a little bit more difficult for what I want to do, which is a little bit more up-to-date information. So it's not as easy. I can get some kind of bare general ideas, but other than that, it's not extremely helpful, but it'll be fun. It's going to get better. There's going to be plugins. I follow a lot of ChatGPT stuff. It'll be cool. Have I asked Paul and Dylan for ads? I know Paul and I've met Dylan, and maybe they'll just throw crazy cash at me for no reason. We support the Paul Macbeth Foundation every year with our Skip Ace fundraising of his players pack for USDGC. So, I mean, why wouldn't you? Is there a workaround for mobile yet? Oh, you're probably talking about the button where you hit the hamburger and nothing shows up. It just kind of shrinks the page. I was looking at that right before the show, and I think it's just an issue with a different link that I created. I need to just dig into a little bit of the JavaScript and fix that up. But otherwise, you can scroll to the very bottom, and there's a link that says log into Skipbase at the bottom of the page, or you can bypass it totally and just go to app.skipbase.com. But I'm hoping to have that fixed up tomorrow. I didn't even get a chance to tell Sai Ananda that I called her good season, because I did at the beginning of the season. She's a player much like, I feel like, Zach Arlinghouse, where they never had a chance to tour, so they never got into a rhythm. And Zach being only 18, I know Sai is 27, but I knew that Sai had really good skills. I wasn't sure exactly how good. I think I said that I don't believe she's going to be winning any big events, but she's going to pop up there. Clearly, I was a little bit wrong, as she just won a big event. So, call me happily surprised about that, but very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, the Wu-Tang disc. And if you notice, all of her West Side logos on her shirt and her hat had the two Sais in them. I mean, how can you go wrong with Sai Ananda? Daikini asks, whatever happened to BattleBox? We just didn't get around to doing it anymore. I'd love to do it some more. I'd love to take we kept saying do it in the off season, but it really felt like the off season was just as busy as the regular season this year and last year, with all these player signings every week, and then these just little things every single week. It almost felt like we didn't have a single week where it was like, what can we do? What are we going to talk about? Let's do a battle box or something along those lines. I thought it was fun. I'd love to get back on it and do something more, but we'll see. Tim says that Sai popped up on his radar at USW DGC last year. For a lot of people, too. Like I said, she was in it up until the last half of the final round. Went the entire tournament without a bogey. There's not a lot of OB at Elver, and there's a little bit at Token, but most certainly just being bogey-free up until that. And then she kind of went a little... I think it all hit her at once, unfortunately. But I remember her from Junior Worlds. I didn't really, we have a lot of junior winners. I didn't think anything of it. But it was her Am World win that really put her on the radar for me. Checking out some of that and knowing that she is a very, very solid player, even at Am Worlds. And that was when her rating was low, but even her round ratings were only like 930, 920. But you could see the possible progression that she had back then. So I'm really excited to have her out on tour. I'm sad she's not going to get a chance to play Champions Cup, because I think that with her controlled distance, she could play really well there. Where is Terry? Because he was glitching, we were actually deciding off the air real quick whether or not we were going to just even do an after show at all. And I had said, like, no, I'll just shut it down. And then I came to this page and I saw one or two chats, and I'm like, I can hop on just for a few more minutes. Just a few more minutes. So put a picture of Terry in the left box over here. Like, hey, I could be Terry Miller. That's what Terry would look like to me. It's just, paint my hand red or something, like he's sunburnt. Has anyone played with much of the AI stuff? I should really get better at that. I haven't had a real chance to dig into it much. I wanted to do something today with the DALL-E, the image generation, or Midjourney. I was just kind of wanted to mess around. And both services were locked up and said, try tomorrow, we're too busy. And I'm not about to pay the $20 a month for priority access, not until I have a really good use for it. It does seem like it could be very useful for writing some of these summaries of events if you just throw out a few data points. I'm going to have to get a little bit better at that. Tim, who's an artist, says he plays with Midjourney a lot. I am in the Midjourney Discord, and I try playing with it every now and again. I'm not skilled enough with Photoshop to be able to take much of what I get from there and do anything good with it. But we'll see. I think there's a lot of really cool potential in these tools. Any word from the Pro Tour about safety protocols for camera crews? Did they get any of these protective hats for those who would wear them? I don't believe they purchased any. I could be wrong. I haven't talked to anyone on the ground. I was involved with a few different meetings, and I didn't hear anything about it. I do know that Dave from Heiser Media, the gentleman who took the shot to the skull, he purchased one, and he was back out on the course this week, feeling much more secure and feeling better about if he were to ever take one again, that the plastic insert he got into his cap seemed like it was sufficient, is what he said. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens, I think, with one of those? You hit it, someone hits it hard enough where it cracks? If that's the case, you're going to be glad you were wearing it. Tim says he uses the Midjourney kind of to explore ideas. That's what I used it a little bit for too. Again, I used one of the pictures, I think, for a featured image that they're called in WordPress. I may use some more for things like that because it's really easy to give it a little bit of data points, and then it just makes an image for me. I don't have to think about anything. And I know Tim hates to hear this, but I don't have to pay an artist or anything like that. We're running into some crazy days, that's for sure. Sam Martin says he asked ChatGPT about fantasy disc golf. Yeah, I don't know if you have to throw fantasy disc golf in quotes, because anytime you put the word fantasy in there, it seems like it goes towards like fantasy novels and writing is what it does. That's one of the things I was including, because none of the image creation tools, DALL-E or Midjourney, I think there's one other one, know anything about disc golf. You can't get baskets, nothing. All of it, it doesn't understand what a basket is, which makes things difficult, because I would love to be able to say something along the lines of, give me a skyline of Nashville with baskets on top of the buildings, something goofy like that. But it doesn't know what a basket is. Even if you say disc golf basket, even if you put that in quotes, even if you say disc golf cage, I could not get it. I even went as far as like disc catcher, Mach 3, Mach 5. It doesn't understand any of that. When I tried the Mach 3 and the Mach 5, it gave me airplanes. I just couldn't get thing. Yeah, it doesn't throw frisbees very well either. The frisbees that they give you are like sometimes weirdly sized or like cutouts in the middle, almost like it's an aerobee. It's one of those things. And Tim says, all I got was a free shirt from you. Sorry. Is there enough footage for me to deep fake a round of me throwing and make it look like Ricky? No. Probably not. Probably not at all. But okay, everybody. Thanks again for joining. It's going to be, like I said, a short after show. I don't have a lot to talk about. I just wanted to hop on and let everyone know that I forget what I jumped on for. But congratulations. I'm glad Sai won. I'm glad Dave, the cameraman's doing well. I'm glad Skip Ace is doing well. I'm glad you guys are all doing well. doing pretty good. I went for dinner tonight. Went to Jose's Blue Sombrero right up the road. Had a really good dinner with a margarita. Everything is coming up, Van Derzen. So for Terry Miller and myself, and of course Sai Ananda earlier, this is the after show episode 448. I'm not even gonna bother putting this part out as a podcast, so we're just gonna do the main show. Hopefully anyone that wants to see it is gonna watch it on YouTube here. So thanks a lot, everybody, and have a good night.